The night was cold and silent. The twin moons of the colony world hung above like silver eyes watching the sleeping valley. Inside a small metal house at the edge of the town, a human named Ethan Cole sat by his table, repairing a broken heating coil. Sparks jumped in the dim light, and the sound of the storm outside made the walls tremble. Ethan lived alone now with only the wind for company. His wife had died years ago, and his only son had left for the deep mines. Life had become simple, quiet, and lonely. He was about to put away his tools when a strange sound echoed from the door. Knock, knock. It was soft, almost weak, like someone too afraid to make noise. Ethan frowned. It was midnight. No one visited at this hour. He reached for his old pulse pistol, the one that still hummed faintly with energy, and walked to the door. "Who's there?" he called out, but only the wind answered. Then came another knock, a bit louder this time. His heart began to beat faster. Maybe a drunk colonist lost in the storm, or a broken scavenger droid? He unlatched the lock and slowly opened the door. Two small figures stood there, soaked and shivering. They looked like children, maybe 10 years old, but their skin was pale blue and faintly glowing under the rain. Their eyes were wide and silver, reflecting the lightning above. One of them held something in her hand, a broken necklace with a small glowing pendant that carried an ancient human symbol. "Please. Help us," the girl said in a trembling voice. Ethan froze. He had seen many aliens before during his years as a supply officer, but these two looked different, too human. Their faces were soft, their ears slightly pointed, their hair silvery white, and the boy beside her was holding her hand tightly, like he was protecting her from the whole world. Without thinking, Ethan stepped aside. "Get in, quickly!" They entered, dripping water on the floor. Ethan closed the door fast, locking it behind them. The storm roared louder outside, but inside the room was suddenly filled with the sound of their shaking breaths. "What are you two doing out there?" he asked, placing a blanket around their shoulders. "Where are your parents?" The twins looked at each other. The girl lowered her head. Gone. "They took them away." "Who did?" Ethan asked softly. "The hunters," the boy whispered. His voice was small but full of fear. "They said we don't belong. They said we're wrong." Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. Hunters. He had heard the stories. Alien bounty squads that chased people for profit, or worse, for what they carried inside their blood. He crouched beside them. "What's your name?" "I'm Lyra," the girl said, her voice shaking. "This is my brother Nilo. And what's that you're holding?" he asked, pointing to the glowing pendant. Lyra hesitated, then held it out. The symbol glowed faintly, forming 3 circles linked together. The mark of the old Earth colonies. Ethan hadn't seen that symbol since his military days. It was banned after the war when humanity was pushed to the edge of the galaxy. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "It was our mother's," Lyra said. "She said it belonged to you," Ethan blinked. "To me? That's impossible," but something deep inside him stirred. He reached out, touching the pendant. It reacted instantly, glowing brighter. The light painted the walls in gold, and for a second he felt a pulse, like it recognized him. The twins stared at him wide-eyed. Lyra whispered, "She said the human with this mark would protect us." Ethan didn't know what to say. His throat tightened. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even a soldier anymore. Just a broken man in a forgotten town. But the fear in their eyes hit him like a punch to the heart. "You can stay here tonight," he said finally. "No one will hurt you while you're under my roof." Lyra smiled weakly. Nilo leaned against Ethan's arm, half asleep already. Outside, thunder cracked and shadows flashed past the window. Ethan turned off the lights and looked out through a small gap. In the distance, beyond the hills, strange lights moved across the sky. Search beams. The hunters were here. He stepped back, loaded his old pistol, and whispered to himself, "What have I just brought into my home?" But deep down, he already knew the truth. The twins weren't just lost children. They were something more, something the galaxy feared, and somehow, their fate was now tied to his. The storm howled, the lights drew closer, and the old soldier inside Ethan Cole woke up once again. The morning light crept slowly through the cracks in the shutters, painting thin golden lines across the metal floor. Ethan Cole hadn't slept all night. He sat by the window, his old pistol resting on the table, his eyes fixed on the hills where the searchlights had been hours ago. Now the sky was quiet, but his mind wasn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those 2 alien twins standing in the rain, holding that glowing human pendant. Behind him, small footsteps echoed. Lyra and Nilo were awake. They moved carefully, as if afraid the floor would collapse beneath them. Ethan turned to see them sitting at the edge of the couch, wrapped in blankets that were far too big for their small bodies. "Morning," Ethan said, trying to sound calm. "You two sleep at all?" Lyra shook her head. "We dreamed of fire. The hunters burned our home." Nilo just looked down, clutching the pendant tightly in his tiny blue hands. Ethan sighed. "You're safe here. For now." He walked over to the small stove and poured them both a bowl of warm porridge. The twins stared at it like they had never seen food before. Lyra sniffed the steam, then smiled faintly. "It smells kind," Ethan chuckled softly. "Kind? That's a new word for porridge." But deep down, something about her words touched him. Kind. No one had called anything he did kind in years. As they ate slowly, Ethan studied them closer. The glow on their skin was faint in daylight but still visible, like soft moonlight flowing under their skin. Their eyes were large, reflecting everything, and when they blinked, a thin second eyelid flashed over, a clear sign of alien heritage. Yet their facial shapes, their hands, even their tiny nervous habits, were human. He needed answers. "Lyra," he began quietly, "you said your mother told you to find me. How did she know my name?" The girl looked uncertain. "She said you were part of the old ones, that you carried the human key." "The human key?" Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" She hesitated. "We don't know, but she said the galaxy would fear you, and that's why we must find you." Before Ethan could speak again, the room lights flickered. His security monitor blinked red, motion outside. His instincts flared. He grabbed his pistol and motioned for the twins to stay quiet. Crawling to the small window, he peeked outside. A black drone hovered above the fence, scanning the area with a blue beam. It bore the insignia of the Galactic Authority. Ethan cursed under his breath. They were fast. He turned back. "You two, basement, now!" The twins didn't argue. He led them down a narrow stairwell beneath the floor, into a small shelter packed with old supplies from his war days. As the drone beeped overhead, Ethan shut the hatch and muted the lights. The three of them stayed in darkness, breathing quietly. Lyra whispered, "They're looking for us, aren't they?" "Yes," Ethan replied grimly. "And if they find you, they'll take you away. Or worse." Nilo trembled and pressed closer to him. Ethan put a hand on the boy's shoulder, trying to calm him. "I've faced worse enemies before, but I need to know why they want you." There was silence. Then Lyra spoke, voice breaking. "Because we're not supposed to exist. They say humans and our kind can't mix, but we are proof that they can." Ethan's stomach turned. "You mean you're—" "Half," Lyra said softly. "Half human, half Altherian. Our mother was royal. She broke the law to bring us into this world." The revelation hit him like a thunderclap. The Altherian Empire ruled most of the Spiral Arm, a proud ancient race that despised humans for being too emotional, too unpredictable. If their royal family created hybrids, it could start a galactic war. He ran a hand through his hair. "Why come to me? You don't even know me." Lyra's silver eyes met his. "Because you're part of it too." Before he could ask what that meant, the drone's beam flashed through the window above. Ethan froze. It had detected something. The scanner hummed, sweeping closer to the door. Thinking fast, Ethan triggered an old EMP grenade he'd built years ago. He threw it toward the ceiling, and a soft thump followed by a flash of light filled the room. The monitor went black. The drone dropped out of the sky, silent. "Pack up," Ethan ordered, his soldier's voice returning. "They'll send more." Lyra nodded, gripping her brother's hand. "Where will we go?" Ethan opened a metal locker and pulled out a dusty backpack, a ration pack, and a map chip. "Old supply depot, 50 clicks west. We can hide there until I figure out what's happening." As they climbed up the stairs, Lyra glanced back. "Ethan, thank you." He didn't reply. He just checked his pistol's charge. But as the twins stepped into the sunlight, Ethan felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was protecting. And deep down, a strange feeling told him, these two children weren't just strangers who needed help. They were the reason the galaxy was about to change forever. The next night came heavy and dark. A storm rolled across the plains again, but this time, it wasn't just thunder in the clouds. It was the deep hum of engines, Alien ships moving fast and low over the valley. Ethan Cole stood on the ridge above his small farmhouse, the twins beside him. In the distance, the colony lights flickered as power grids failed one by one. "Those aren't patrol ships," Ethan said grimly, his old military instincts waking up again. "Those are hunters." Lyra's small fingers tightened around his sleeve. "They found us." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then we make them regret it." He led them back inside, locking every door and sealing every window. The hum of the approaching crafts grew louder, like angry insects swarming across the night sky. He checked his scanner, 6 signals inbound. Too many for one man to handle. But he had something they didn't: knowledge of the terrain. He turned to the twins. "We'll use the tunnels under the old refinery." "To exactly as I say, no questions," Lyra nodded. Nilo just stared at him with those silver eyes, trusting him completely. That trust hit Ethan hard. He had no idea why they believed in him so deeply, but he couldn't let them down. He grabbed his worn combat vest, loaded his pistol, and led them out into the storm. The air was filled with static, the ground trembling as the ships landed near the edge of town. Blue searchlights swept across the dirt roads. The metallic voices of alien soldiers echoed in the distance. By order of the Galactic Authority, surrender the fugitives known as Subject Alpha and Beta. Ethan pushed the twins behind an old vehicle hull. "Stay down. Don't move." The lights passed dangerously close. He could see their shadows, tall armored aliens with glowing visors. Their rifles hummed with charged plasma. They weren't here to arrest. They were here to erase. When the searchlight swung away, Ethan whispered, "Go." They ran. Their feet splashed through puddles, mud flying. Lyra stumbled once, but Ethan caught her. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind a pile of rusted junk, an old maintenance shaft from the war days. He yanked the cover open and motioned them in. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing like ticking clocks. The twins crawled ahead, and Ethan sealed the hatch behind them just as the first explosion hit above. The world shook. Dust rained down, Lyra gasped. "They're destroying everything." Ethan's voice was calm but cold. "That's what they do when they're afraid." As they moved deeper into the tunnel, a soft light flickered from the pendant around Lyra's neck. It pulsed faster now, responding to something. Ethan stopped and stared.
"Why is it glowing?"
"It always glows when they're close," she said. "It feels them?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Feels them?" Lyra nodded slowly. "They are made from the same kind of energy. Our mother said it's tied to blood." Ethan felt a strange tension rise in his chest. He took out a small handheld analyzer, a relic from his soldier days, and scanned the pendant. The results made his heart pound. Human DNA markers, mixed with Altherian code. And not just any human DNA, it was his. He froze. "That's impossible." Lyra and Nilo looked at him confused. "What's wrong?" He stared at the readout. His own genetic code matched 50% with theirs. They weren't just hybrids. They were connected to him, his blood, his cells. Someone had taken his DNA, mixed it with alien genetics, and created these children. "They're after you," he whispered, "because you're proof that humanity isn't what they say it is." Lyra frowned. "What do they say?" "That we're weak," Ethan said quietly. "That we're broken, emotional, dangerous. That we should never rise again." "But you're not weak," Nilo said softly. "You're the strongest being we've met." Before Ethan could respond, a loud crash echoed from above. The ceiling cracked and debris fell. A beam of blue light burst through the wall. The hunters had found the tunnel. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They sprinted through the narrow passage. Plasma fire scorched the air behind them. Ethan turned, firing his pistol. The first alien dropped, its armor sizzling. He kept firing, covering the twins until they reached the exit, an old metal grate leading to the cliffs. Ethan kicked it open. Cold air rushed in. Below them was a long drop to the valley river. "There's no time," Ethan said. "Jump!" Lyra hesitated, terrified, but Nilo grabbed her hand and leapt. Ethan followed a heartbeat later. The three of them plunged into the dark water, the storm swallowing their screams. When they surfaced, the sky burned above. The colony was in flames. The hunters were destroying everything. Ethan dragged the twins to the riverbank, coughing. Lyra clutched the pendant. "They won't stop, will they?" Ethan looked up at the burning sky. "No," he said softly. "Not until they find the truth." He turned toward the distant mountains where the old human base lay buried under centuries of dust. And that's exactly where we're going to take them. Lyra blinked. Why? Because, Ethan said, gripping his pistol tight. If the galaxy wants to erase humanity's name, and it's time we remind them who we really are. The thunder roared again, but this time it sounded like the growl of war. The cave they hid in smelled of rust and rain. The fire Ethan had built flickered against the cold stone, casting trembling shadows on the faces of the twins. Lyra sat close to her brother, both wrapped in a blanket far too thin for the chill. Ethan stood apart, staring at the small scanner screen he had salvaged from his old survival kit. He had run the DNA test 3 times. Each time the result was the same. The machine wasn't wrong. The twins weren't strangers, they were his. Half human, half Altherian, and unmistakably his. He rubbed his forehead, trying to think, trying to breathe. How could this be? He had never even left human space during the last years of the war. But the data was clear. The Altherians had his genetic signature. Someone had stolen it. Someone had used it. Behind him, Lyra's voice broke the silence. You're angry, she said softly. Ethan turned slowly. Not at you. His voice was rough. At whoever made you this way. Lyra's silver eyes shimmered in the firelight. Our mother said you were a brave man. A soldier who saved many lives. She said they took your blood to build hope. He froze. Build hope? What does that mean? She called us the bridge, Nilo whispered. The bridge between humans and Altherians. Ethan crouched down, looking at them closely. Your mother, who was she? Lyra hesitated, then took off the pendant and held it up. Her name was Orena. She was Empress of the Altherian Corps. The fire crackled. The air seemed to stop. Ethan stared, speechless. He knew that name. Every soldier did. Orena, the alien empress who had ended the human-Altherian war 2 decades ago. She had signed the peace treaty that allowed the last human colonies to survive. But rumor had said she vanished after the war. Now he knew why. Ethan sat heavily on the stone floor. You're the Empress's children. Lyra nodded slowly. But the council called us abominations. They said a royal line cannot be mixed with human blood. They destroyed the lab and killed everyone who knew. Except your mother, Ethan said quietly. Lyra shook her head. They took her away when we escaped. We don't know if she's alive. The fire popped loudly, scattering embers like dying stars. Ethan's thoughts spun. The Empress of the Altherians had created children with human blood. And that human was him. The scandal, the danger, the politics, it was bigger than anything he had ever faced. He looked at the twins again. Their glowing skin, their gentle voices, their fear, and something inside him changed. They weren't mistakes. They were miracles. Proof that 2 worlds could share one heartbeat. Before he could speak, his scanner beeped again. An incoming signal encrypted human military code. He rushed to the device and opened the feed. A holographic image flickered to life, showing a tired, scarred face. Commander Yates, his old superior from the war. Ethan, the hologram said. If you're receiving this, it means they've found you. Ethan stiffened. Yates, how the hell? The hologram continued, ignoring him. The twins you're with are real. They were created in Project Genesis, years after the war ended. Your DNA was taken during medical recovery. The Altherian Empress worked with our top scientists in secret. Their goal was unity, a shared future. But when the council found out, they ordered the project erased. Everyone involved was executed. Ethan's pulse hammered. Project Genesis. It was real. Yates's image flickered. Listen, son. The twins hold something far more dangerous than you realize. Their blood carries dormant data, coordinates to something ancient. The core vault. If the council gets it first, humanity will be erased from history. Protect them. Find the vault. The transmission ended in static. Ethan stared into the smoke. His old commander was gone again, maybe dead, maybe worse. But the message burned in his mind. The core vault. The words felt heavy, like destiny itself. Lyra looked up at him, frightened. What's happening? Ethan took a deep breath. You 2 aren't just the children of an empress. You're the key to something the galaxy's been hiding, something older than both our races. Nilo tilted his head. Then we must find it. Ethan smiled faintly. Yeah, we must. He stood and looked out toward the horizon. Beyond the hills, the night sky glowed faintly where alien ships still searched. But far beyond that, deep in the stars, lay the ruins of the core, the place where humanity once stood tall before the galaxy buried its truth. He turned back to the twins. "Get some rest. We leave at dawn." Lyra blinked, curious. "Where?" "To the core," he said. "To find what your blood is hiding." The twins exchanged a look, both scared and excited. Ethan watched them settle beside the fire. For the first time in years, he felt a purpose again. A mission that wasn't about war or survival. It was about family, about truth, and about reminding the galaxy what humans really were. Outside, the wind shifted. Above the clouds, unseen, the hunters regrouped. The chase wasn't over. It had just begun. The morning came with fire. Ethan had expected the hunters to track them, but not this fast, not this brutally. He woke to the sound of explosions rolling through the distant valley, followed by the shriek of fighter engines tearing through the clouds. The ground trembled beneath him and dust rained from the ceiling of the cave. Lyra woke with a startled cry. "They've found us!" Ethan was already on his feet, grabbing his gear and shoving the scanner into his pack. "Move. We can't stay here another second." He led them out through the narrow tunnel that opened to the cliffs above the colony. Smoke was rising from the settlement below, black, thick, endless. The once quiet town was now a war zone. Ethan's heart clenched at the sight of the colony he'd helped build, burning. Nilo gripped his sister's hand tightly. "Why are they hurting everyone?" "We didn't do anything wrong." Ethan looked down at him, his jaw set. "They're not after everyone, kid. They're after you, but I won't let them take you. Not while I'm still breathing." He scanned the sky. The hunter ships circled like vultures. One broke formation and descended, its cannon charging with a violent hum. Ethan grabbed the twins and dove behind a rock just as a beam of plasma carved through the ground where they'd been standing. The shockwave threw dust and fire across the cliffside. The twins coughed, their glowing skin dimming under the soot. Ethan's ears rang, but he forced himself up. "We have to reach the depot." He led them down a ravine, every step echoing with the roar of alien engines. As they ran, he spotted groups of colonists fleeing, men, women, children running in panic from their burning homes. Some recognized him. "Ethan, what's happening?" one shouted. "Get to the bunkers!" He yelled back, "Now!" He didn't tell them that the aliens weren't here for the colony. They were here for two small children hiding behind him. They reached the edge of the industrial zone, rows of old fuel tanks and collapsed machines from the last war. Ethan knew every pipe and tunnel here. He had built some of them himself. He ushered the twins inside a half-buried bunker. "Stay here," he said, his tone hard. "Don't come out until I say so." Lyra grabbed his hand. "But what about you?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I'll buy us time." He climbed back outside and set his rifle on the ledge. He wasn't the soldier he once was, but the muscle memory returned easily. He aimed at the nearest drone and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked like thunder. The drone exploded into a rain of sparks. "Still got it," he muttered. Another ship turned toward his position. A second plasma beam struck the rocks, showering him with debris. He rolled aside, grabbed a grenade, and hurled it into the smoke. The explosion ripped through the air, taking 2 hunters with it. But there were more, dozens more, emerging from the clouds like shadows made of metal. Ethan fired until his rifle overheated. He ducked behind cover, breathing hard, sweat and soot running down his face. Down in the bunker, Lyra felt her chest tighten. She could feel the pain outside, the anger, the fear. Her heart began to glow softly and her eyes filled with white light. "Lyra," Nilo whispered, frightened. "What's happening?" "I don't know," she said, trembling. "But he's in danger. I can feel it." Without warning, she ran out. Nilo followed, calling her name. Ethan turned when he heard their voices. "No, get back!" But it was too late. A hunter aimed its weapon straight at the children. Ethan threw himself forward, but before the shot fired, Lyra screamed. The sound wasn't human. It was like lightning given a voice. The air exploded with light. A shockwave burst outward from the twins, lifting sand, fire, and metal into the air. The plasma beams vanished. The hunter ships froze mid-flight, their engines stuttering, their lights flickering out. The sky filled with brilliant white tendrils of energy, alive, twisting, pulsing like living stars. Ethan shielded his face, the heat burning his skin. When he looked again, the hunters were gone, disintegrated into ash. Only silence remained, Lyra collapsed to her knees, panting. Nilo held her tightly, his small hands glowing as he tried to calm her. "It's okay," he whispered. "It's okay, Lyra, you stopped them." Ethan walked toward them slowly, stunned. What did you just do?" Lyra's voice was weak. "I don't know, it just happened." Ethan knelt beside them, his heart still racing. "That energy, it's not a weapon. It's something else. Something older." Nilo looked up, eyes bright with confusion. "We felt everything. The ships, the fear, the sky. It's like the stars listened." Ethan stared at the scorched earth, at the ruins of the hunter ships that had vanished into glowing dust. The twins had unleashed something that defied every law of physics he knew. It wasn't human technology. It wasn't Altharian either. It was beyond both. He took a deep breath and looked toward the horizon where more ships were beginning to gather. "They'll come again," he said. "And next time they'll bring armies." Lyra's hand trembled in his. "Then what do we do?" Ethan's eyes hardened. "We do what humans always do when the universe tries to erase us." He stood, loading his rifle again, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "We fight." But as the wind howled and the ruins burned behind them, Ethan knew this was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for truth, for the secret in their blood that could change the galaxy forever. The night after the battle was eerily quiet. No ships in the sky, no engines, no explosions, just the whisper of wind passing through the smoking ruins of the colony. Ethan sat beside a dim campfire in the middle of the wasteland, staring into the flickering flames. The twins slept nearby, curled together under a blanket that smelled of ash and rain. He couldn't stop replaying what had happened. The twins had destroyed an entire fleet without weapons, without even touching them. Energy, pure, impossible energy, had poured from their bodies like they were living conduits of the stars themselves. It wasn't just power. It was something far deeper, something ancient. He took a deep breath, holding up the pendant in the firelight. It still glowed faintly, reacting to the twins even when they slept. The same symbol, 3 circles bound together, now pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan remembered old war stories from his days in the academy, about lost human colonies that had once reached beyond the spiral arm. Before the wars, before the council, before humanity was forced into hiding. Could this pendant be proof that those stories were true? He turned when Lyra stirred. Her silver eyes opened slowly, reflecting the glow of the fire. "You're still awake," she said softly. "Couldn't sleep," Ethan murmured. "Too much on my mind." She sat up beside him, looking at the flames. "You're thinking about what we did?" "Yeah," he said. "And what it means." Lyra looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. It just happened. I felt everything around us, the fear, the anger, and it all turned into light." Ethan nodded. "That's not a weapon, Lyra. That's something older than both our species." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small data chip, the one from Commander Yates's message. "Your mother was trying to finish something." Project Genesis. But it wasn't just about peace between humans and Altharians. It was about something bigger. The core vault, Lyra frowned. "You think it's real?" "I know it is," Ethan said. "And I think your blood, your power, is the key." Just then, Nilo woke up, blinking groggily. "The light spoke to me," he whispered. Ethan and Lyra turned to him. "What do you mean, spoke to you?" Ethan asked. Nilo looked distant, like he was still half in a dream. "When the energy came, I heard voices. Not words. More like feelings, memories. They were human. Billions of them. They were afraid but proud. They said, 'We left our mark in the stars. Don't let them erase it.'" Ethan's chest tightened. "That's it," he whispered. "That's the truth the council doesn't want anyone to know." Lyra tilted her head. "What truth?" He looked between them, his voice steady. "Humanity wasn't the youngest race in the galaxy like they tell us. We were the oldest. The first explorers. The first engineers. We built the first star cores that power their ships today. Then something happened, something that wiped us out. The survivors started again on the edge of the galaxy. The council covered it up to make us look weak, primitive. But your mother found the proof." Lyra's eyes widened. "So the core vault is where the truth sleeps," Ethan finished. "The archives, the knowledge, maybe even the technology of the first humans. And if you're part of that legacy..." He looked at them both. "Then so am I." The wind picked up outside, carrying the smell of ozone and smoke. Ethan stood and looked toward the horizon. Far to the north, the sky glowed faintly blue. The core nebula. That's where they had to go. That's where the vault was buried. But before he could speak, a sharp beep from his scanner broke the moment. Multiple signals. Fast. Approaching. Ethan's hand went straight to his pistol. They're back. Lyra stood, clutching the pendant. We can't keep running forever. He glanced at her, his expression hard. We don't run. Not anymore. We finish what your mother started. The scanner flashed again, showing something unexpected. 2 distinct codes among the enemy signals. Human. Military. Ethan frowned. That can't be right. A beam of light cut through the clouds. Dropships descended, one bearing the Altherian insignia, the other marked with the emblem of the old human fleet. The air shook as they landed side by side. Soldiers poured out, both alien and human standing together. From the middle of the group stepped a tall woman wrapped in royal armor of silver and blue. Her eyes glowed like Lyra's. Lyra gasped. Mother? Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The Empress, Orenna, alive. She walked forward slowly, her gaze soft but filled with sorrow. Ethan Cole, she said. You kept your promise, even when you didn't know you made it. He stared at her. Why me? Why my blood? Because, she said gently. When the galaxy chose war, you were the only soldier who saved an enemy child instead of killing her. You carried the spark of humanity that the stars themselves remember. We needed that spark to light the bridge between worlds. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Mother, the vault, does it really exist? Orenna nodded. Yes, and it's awakening. But you must reach it before the Council does. They plan to destroy it and everything tied to human history. Ethan stepped closer. Then we'll reach it first. The Empress smiled faintly. Then go. And remember, what flows in your blood is not just human or Altherian. It's the memory of creation itself. As her words faded, the ground trembled again. Distant thunder echoed not from weather but from fleets gathering above the clouds. The final hunt was beginning. Ethan looked at the twins, then at the sky blazing with warships. Let them come, he said softly. We've got a legacy to protect. And as lightning split the sky, the 3 of them walked toward the storm, ready to bring the truth of humanity back to the stars. The storm above the core nebula burned like a living thing. Blue lightning danced between clouds of silver gas, and deep within that endless storm, something ancient waited, buried beneath the rock of a dead world. The core vault. Ethan Cole stood on the deck of an old warship, its metal hull shaking as they cut through the violent skies. Lyra and Nilo sat beside him, their hands clasped tightly, their eyes glowing faintly in rhythm with the thunder outside. The pendant around Lyra's neck pulsed faster now, like a heart guiding them toward destiny. We're close, Ethan said, gripping the control lever. Hold on. The ship dove through the storm. Lightning slammed into the shields, painting the cockpit white. The engine screamed, alarms flashing across the panel. But Ethan didn't pull back. He pushed harder, teeth clenched, eyes fixed on the flickering beacon ahead. A giant spire of black stone rising from the planet below, half buried, half alive with strange light. That's it, he whispered. The core vault, Lyra gasped. It's beautiful, but Nilo frowned. It's calling to us. The ship broke through the clouds and landed hard on a metal platform covered in dust and vines. As the engines powered down, silence filled the cabin, thick, heavy, waiting. Ethan stepped out first, blaster in hand. The air was cold, thin, and electric. He could taste the static in it. The ground hummed beneath his boots. Stay close, he said, leading the twins toward a massive gate carved with the same symbol as the pendant, 3 circles woven together. It glowed as they approached. When Lyra held out the pendant, the circles spun slowly, aligning. The gate shuddered. A deep tone filled the air, low, ancient, powerful. Then, with a sound like 1,000 whispers exhaling at once, the gate opened. Inside, the walls glowed with golden veins of light. Murals lined the corridors, humans in shining armor standing beside alien races building worlds together. Machines older than time hummed softly, their lights flickering like stars. Lyra touched the wall, awe in her eyes. This is who they were, Ethan nodded. The first humans, the ones who built the galaxy. They walked deeper past the empty halls until they reached a chamber shaped like a sphere. In the center stood a floating structure, part crystal, part machine, suspended in a field of blue energy. Streams of data danced around it like ribbons of light. "This is it," Ethan whispered. "The vault core." But before they could move closer, a blinding beam of light filled the room. From behind them, a ship's ramp opened, and soldiers poured out. Altherian and council troops, their weapons raised. At their front stood High Chancellor Vorin, his dark armor gleaming like oil. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Step away from the vault, human," he snarled. "You've gone far enough." Ethan stepped protectively in front of the twins. "You don't want what's in there. You want control. You want to bury the truth." "The truth," Vorin spat, "is that humans were a disease that infected this galaxy once before. We erased them once, we'll do it again." Ethan raised his weapon. "You can try," the Chancellor laughed coldly. "You think you can fight an empire?" Ethan smiled faintly. "No, but they can." The twins stepped forward. Their eyes blazed white. Energy rippled through the air, bending metal, shaking the floor. Vorin stumbled back, shouting orders, but his soldiers' rifles melted in their hands. The vault responded. Its crystal heart began to spin faster, resonating with the twins' energy. The walls glowed brighter, and ancient voices whispered through the chamber, soft echoing words in a forgotten tongue. Then suddenly the whispers became clear. Humanity is not gone. Humanity became the stars. Light erupted outward. Every screen, every transmission across the galaxy flickered with the same message. Across worlds, beings of every race saw it. Humans working beside aliens in unity, building the old empires, creating peace before it was stolen. The galaxy gasped. The lie had been broken. Vorin screamed, charging forward with his blade raised, but Ethan moved faster. He caught the Chancellor's arm, twisted, and drove him backward into the energy field. Vorin's armor shattered, and in seconds he was gone, erased by the same light he feared. Ethan turned to the twins. "You did it. The truth is out," Lyra's voice trembled. "We just showed them who we really are." The vault continued to glow, now calmer, softer. Then a holographic figure appeared above it, a woman in royal armor with eyes like Lyra's. The Empress. Orena. "My children," she said, her voice gentle. "And you, Ethan Cole, you have done what I could not. You've reminded the stars that humanity was never lost. It simply forgot itself." Ethan bowed his head. "What now?" "Now," she said, smiling, "the galaxy chooses. Unity or destruction. But they will remember the human who faced an empire alone to protect the light." The image faded, leaving silence behind. Ethan looked at the twins, his voice soft. "You've got a lot to live for now." Lyra smiled faintly. "So do you, Dad." The word hit him like a pulse of warmth through his chest. He hadn't been called that in years. He didn't know if it was true by blood or by choice, but it didn't matter. He smiled back. Above them, the storm began to clear. The stars shone through for the first time in centuries, their light reflected in the twins' eyes. The man who had once lived alone on a forgotten colony stood now in the center of history. And as the vault sealed behind them, its final message burned across the galaxy. Humanity was not the end of creation. Humanity was the beginning. Ethan looked at the stars and whispered, "Let them remember." And somewhere far beyond, the galaxy did.